It's the South Carolina Good Life Podcast.
Welcome, South Carolina Realtors, to another episode of the South Carolina Good Life Podcast. Today, I'll be your host, Tiara Pitts. I'm the Director of Fair Housing here at SCR, along with being an attorney and member of the SCR legal team. Today's episode is all about Black History Month and celebrating the contributions that our African American realtors have made to the housing industry. I'm very honored to be joined by some special guests today. First, I'd like to introduce this year's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair, Denise Franklin. She has been a realtor for more than 20 years and lives and practices in the upstate with Blackstream Christie International Real Estate. Denise is a past president of the Greater Greenville Association of Realtors and the founding president of the Upstate Realtors Association of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, otherwise known as NARAB. Denise is also serves on the SCR Executive Committee, the NAR Board of Directors, and the NAR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Welcome, Denise, and thank you so much for being here.
Hello, thank you for having me.
And up next, I'd like to introduce the DEI Vice Chair, Richard Trappier, who lives and practices real estate in Florence, South Carolina with Caldwell Banker. Richard is a retired U.S. Navy veteran and has received numerous accolades, such as the Greater PD Association Realtor of the Year in 2017, as well as being the president of the Greater PD Association of Realtors. This year, Richard will serve as the chair of the subcommittee that selects the Leadership Academy Diversity Scholarship. Welcome, Richard, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And last but not least, I'd like to introduce Realtor Ann King, who has been a licensed realtor for over 35 years. Ms. King is a native and current resident of Florence, South Carolina. Ms. King practices with brand name real estate and was a former broker and owner of a Century 21 franchise. She has achieved numerous accolades and awards over the years and has been a trailblazer for opening the doors for African American realtors in our state. When it comes to serving her community, she has served on several committees, such as being a member of the Greater Florence Chamber of Commerce, the PD Development Board, and the PD Appraisal Board. She is a current member of the Rotary Club of Florence. Thank you so much for being here today, Ms. King.
Thank you for having me.
So first, I'd just like to ask, how did you guys get involved in real estate?
So for me, it was a little untraditional. I was in school studying nursing, and during a prayer service, it came up that I should enter real estate. So immediately I went to an interest meeting that they were having. One of the Century 21 offices was having an interest meeting. I went there, got the information, immediately took the class, went to Wyatt Institute, shameless plug for Wyatt Institute of Real Estate, and the rest is history.
So Richard, how did you come from the Navy into real estate?
Well, for me, it was a little bit different. After I retired from the Navy, and I moved back to South Carolina in 2006. For about 5 years, I worked at the nuclear plant over in Hartsville, and I worked security there. And so after a while, I had some health issues, and doctor took me out of work, and I was able to go back to work, but I'm just contemplating on going back or not. And my wife suggested, because we always love real estate. While we lived in Virginia, we always, go look at new housing and whatnot. And she suggested real estate. So I looked into it, I found a class, and here I am.
Wow. And what about you, Ms. King? Now, you've been in the business over 35 years. How did you even, did you know any other realtors back when you got started? What sparked your interest in this field?
Well, I didn't really know any real estate agents because y'all have to remember I'm a farm girl, so we didn't have real estate agents on the farm. But after I got married and moved to the Florence area, I was working at a plant, and I decided to stop working there. So I came home and I had another baby, which was a shock. And after a while, I wanted to go back to work because I just could not stand being at home. So my husband and I, we started talking about what I could do. Now listen now, what I could do to be at home in the afternoons when the children get home.
Work your own schedule.
Right, my own schedule, and on the weekends. And we chose real estate. And it was different. It was different. But what happened, my children was like, well, what is going on here? So when the commission checks started coming in, they would get something extra. And it was like, oh, we can work with this.
So do you guys feel like your family was supportive
Yes.
of your journeys in real estate?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
most definitely.
Yeah.
So for me initially, because I was younger, my family was, meaning my parents, my aunties and stuff, they were very supportive. But then I got married and my husband was in the military and we moved every 2 years.
Yeah.
So he was not very supportive. He wanted me to go back to school and complete my nursing degree so that every 2 years when we moved, I
had a
could, I would have a job. I could
Yeah.
work. I could work in the military hospital. So he was not supportive. Ironically, now he is. We're not together now, but but he is supportive now because he didn't see the big picture. He just saw he was the breadwinner. He was the provider. And he saw that every 2 years we, got those PCS papers. And had I had my nursing degree, I would have had a job with every duty station change. Yeah. So unlike real estate, every state has a different test. So no, he was not supportive at that time.
So when you all started off or throughout your career being real estate agents and realtors, what were some of the issues that you guys faced being African American agents?
Well, I think for me, one of the challenges that I faced was that I didn't look like the typical real estate agent. I wasn't, mid-30s white guy. And, me being at that time, early 50s, black guy and, working on a second career. So I think for me, that was one of the challenges that I faced, just for me being myself,
So I think for me, one of the challenges and one of the most disappointing times was someone called about a listing and it was a wife and I showed the wife and the mother the property and they loved it. She needed to speak with her husband, who was a doctor, a medical doctor. They called my sales manager and said they did not want to work with me. So my sales manager was like, well, did she do something wrong? Why? They had no reasoning. So the fact that he was learned was quite disappointing. And it was a house on Main Street, Fountain Inn, which is a historic area, and that home was historic. And there was a little plaque on the closet that said slave quarters. I wasn't moved by that because that's history. That's part of the history. We all know that there was slavery at some point, but it was disappointing to know that there was no other reason other than my being black. So they wanted the house. They just didn't want to work with me.
And Ms. King, you have been around the longest of us, so
Yes.
I'm sure it's certain things that you went through and things that you had to overcome to make it how it is now and make more people, especially African Americans, be able to practice and be able to be in leadership positions. So what were, when you were getting started, what were some of the perceptions and the ways, did you feel that people felt any differently about you because of your race?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Because real estate was a white guy's, not even a white lady at that time. We're talking about the 80s. And for me to come into real estate and not just maybe do real estate, because when I do something, I do it. So when I came into it and finally got my bearing, because I had to get some really good training, and agents need to know that. They need that foundation because the white agents expect for us not to know what we're doing. So when I ran my real estate company, you had to get that training, because when you go out of my office, you go out there and you know what you're doing. But back during that time, the agents didn't want to work with me. The brokers didn't want to work with me. And when I got to the point where I started selling houses in the upper neighborhood, they were like, who is this person? What are we going to do with her? And at that time, we didn't have lock boxes on the door, y'all. We had to go to the office and pick up the key.
Yeah.
So when you go to the office to pick up the key, you are really black then, because you may not sound black on the phone. Yeah. So they would be like, well, make sure you turn the lights off. If you open the blinds, make sure you close the blinds, lock the door. And I'm looking at them like, okay, I know how to do all of this stuff. And it was absolutely horrible. Because during that time, we had on call. So the company that I was with at that time, he was up and coming, so he was really, really selling a lot of homes. So one particular day I was on call. This lady called in and she wanted to list her house. So with me being on call, that was my call. So I get in my little car, and it was a little ugly car too. And I went into that neighborhood. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this good listing right here. So when she came to the door, she said, hi, are you the lady that's coming to apply for house cleaning? I was like, oh, wow. So I said, okay, sister, I'm driving my little ugly car back to the office. One day you're going to know my name. So when I got back to the office and I told my broker what happened, and bless his heart, he said, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to go to school more. You're going to have to dress better, so they won't mistake you the next time for the cleaning lady. They'll mistake you for coming to list their house. And that was some really, really good advice from him. But I mean, it was horrible. And we also, I don't know about you guys, had black clients that didn't want to work with us. Did that ever happen to you?
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Because they figured we didn't know what we were doing.
You could, because I was the one that went to school and I took all the classes and got all the training. And some of the black consumers would call and want you to share all of your knowledge, but then they would go buy or list with a white agent. And so along your lines, there was an agent in our market, and this wasn't in the 80s. This was unfortunately in the 2000s that was showing a home, I would say in the luxury market. And an agent was coming in after her to show. She was there with her clients dressed appropriately. And the agent that came in behind her assumed she was the cleaning lady or she was the house manager.
Yep. It's still there, but things have improved a lot, because this is a real estate agent of the year. Back in the 70s and the 80s was none of that. None of it. Yep.
So what are some of the ways that things have improved that, that was a good example of Richard being able to be Realtor of the Year. What are other ways that you've guys seen that over the years things have improved for black agents?
At one point, I was trying to be a good girl. So in Florence, there was 3 companies that every time it was time for a new board member, a new president, it always alternated between those 3 companies. So one day, being the little shy girl that I am, I said, now, somebody's going to have to make a difference. So I sat down and I wrote a letter to the MLS board in Florence. And I have a friend that is an attorney. And I always have you an attorney and have you a banker in case you need to borrow some money sometime. So anyway, I called my attorney friend and I told him what I was getting ready to do. And he knew me and he was like, Ann, knowing you, let me read that letter before you send it out. And to this day, there's still discussions about the letter that I wrote saying that that was just unfair.
Well, actually, this morning, it was the first time that I've heard about that letter. Today, I was giving a fair housing training meeting to Keon, which many of you know. she is going to be our first Black president of the association of the state. Yeah, so that's going to break history.
Right.
And she actually explained to me today when I told her that I was interviewing you that you wrote a letter that is the reason why she even joined, why she even ran for anything. She said that because of that letter was the only reason why she even got, you know, why she's where she is today. Basically, that was the start. And, you know, so you never think that that didn't mean anything, because it really means something then, now, and in the future, because we still haven't had a Black president yet, but Keon is going to be the first. And now, after her, we have, for the first time ever on our leadership team, we have 2 African Americans. So it's just the things that you were able to do really opened the doors for others. Yes. So.
But not only, you know, historically, that letter that she wrote, which Keon broke down another barrier, because she was the first Black president for the PD Realtors Association.
The very first.
And that was very recent, right?
You were the second, right?
Yeah, I was the second.
Was the
no,
second.
actually, I was the third.
The third, okay.
Because Samantha was the second one. Then I came 2 years later. But I was the first Black Realtor of the Year,
Wow.
male or female.
Yep.
In that association.
Yeah, and we're having, so although there are some good things happening, unfortunately, we're still having first. You know, we're having too many first, because you were the first Realtor of the Year in PD. I think Marcus Foster, who's no longer with us, he's out of Spartanburg. He was one of the first Black, well, maybe the first Black male president of the Spartanburg Association. I was the first Black president of the Greenville Association and the first Black Realtor of the Year. So those are some good things that are happening. So we can pat ourselves on the back, but we need to, and we still have first-time home ownership in Black families. And I really want to see us get beyond that, where we're having 12th generation, you know, or families that can say, well, everyone's in my home, and my family has owned a home. We're no longer the first.
So what are some advice that you can give to aspiring African Americans who aren't homeowners, but they aspire to be, or maybe they don't aspire to be because they haven't seen that and they just think, you know, everyone rents in my family. What is some advice that you can give, practical, you know, advice or something that you could share that can encourage someone to, you know, own a home and have that dream of home ownership?
One of the things, and I was doing this morning, was speaking with a young man who's 26 about his finances. And I said, you know, you have poor money management skills. And he said, you're right. So one of the first things is to manage let's do a better job at managing our money. And if that means, in most cases it does, writing down your income, how much do you make? How much do you bring home? And writing down your monthly obligations. And don't forget the times that you're going to Applebee's, or you're going to the game, or you're buying yourself some shoes, and then make short-term sacrifices for long-term goals. Maybe you don't need the $200 pair of Jordans, or maybe you don't need that $1,200 Louis bag, you know, and let's create a savings account. And take the home ownership classes before you think about buying a home, because there's great information. And there are resources out here. You know, we're here in every market.
I think one of the things that we need to do is to let people understand how easy it is to be able to purchase a house, as long as you got, you know, all of your, you know, things in order. So because I, you know, especially when I first got in the business, a lot of people will say, oh man, buying a house is hard. It's hard. But I said, it's not hard. You know, as long as if you got your money, you got your credit together, then, you know, the buying process is actually easy. But you have to do the things and take the steps to make it necessary that you're able to buy a house. And so, I think, just like Denise said, money management skills is very important. And I think, parents, we need to do a better job in discussing finances and credit with our children. As our children become teenagers, because I know me, I never had any, my parents, never taught me anything about credit. I didn't learn anything about credit until I was already in the military. So, so I think, us as parents, we need to do a better job in discussing finances with our children, discussing credit and how important credit is, to be able to purchase a house. I mean, and, people, I hear people say, oh, I follow the Dave Ramsey plan. Okay, I mean, that's great. But do you have $250,000, $300,000 to go pay for a house? Well, no. Okay, so now that you don't have, that money to be able to buy the house outright, so now you got to get a loan. Right. You need to have, your credit and all that stuff in order. I mean, I've had truck drivers, $250,000 a year, and he was not able to buy a house because he didn't have any credit. Wow. Because he wrote everything off, in the business. Yep. And so, and I had to explain to him, listen, if you're going to buy a house, you got to have some credit. And, I don't care how much money you make, if you're looking to get a loan, you have to go through that process.
Yes, that's very important. I was just this morning, my brother sent me his credit score because he is a freshman at USC, and he's in the engineering program, and I added him as a authorized user on one of my credit cards with like, a pretty high limit, and he doesn't really use it maybe for gas and things like that, but now because of that, now he has a credit score. Now right. When he finishes school, there's no reason why he can't have a 700 credit score.
Absolutely.
And right. So I think it's very important, and we can do things as older sisters or parents, or for me, my parents didn't really know much about it, so once I feel like it's our duty, once we know, to help others and to help the younger generations and to educate people, because like you said, even if you have a lot of cash, you need credit to be able to do certain things in life, and to even have the freedom, maybe not utilize it, but to be able to say, well, I could utilize this. I could, if an emergency happens and I need to get a loan, to have access to that. So I think that's really important.
That's true, because my grandparents were homeowners. They were business owners, and we knew they had things. But to Richard's point, you didn't talk about you didn't talk about credit, or you didn't talk about how much something cost. So they would squirrel whole money away, as they would say. But unfortunately, they did not share that with us. That knowledge with us. We saw them do it, and they did it well, but they didn't teach us. So we do have to teach. We do have to teach our kids, and each one reach one, teach one is what I like to say. And you said something, Tiara, that a lot of us don't know, we don't share, is parents. If the parents know, and if they have good credit, add your children to your credit at a young age. So when they become 18 or 21, they will have 700 and higher credit scores. Right. That's a great piece of information. And Dave Ramsey, I used to facilitate his financial peace class, so I knew where the holes were and could penetrate it. But it was very frustrating when you had an entry-level buyer with subpar credit saying, oh, I've got to save 20% down. So now they're getting the second job so they can save money, but they also have childcare that's eating up the money from the second job. So one of the misnomers is you've got to have 20% down. So, one of the things that we can do is say, you don't need a 20% down payment. Right. There are other programs out there that do not require a 20% down payment, and you don't need a 700 credit score. 700 credit score is great, but to purchase a home, you don't need a 700 credit score. So those, I think, are some of the things that we could share with consumers so that they know, hey, you can become a homeowner. Just overcome fear and take the first step.
And there's programs out there now that even if you get bad credit, like the NACA program, they'll help you work through all of that. So, but you got to have a job, y'all. Tell the people you got to have a job.
Stable
and when you
job.
get one, keep it.
Yeah.
Okay, a stable job. Yeah. And when you're making money, save some of it. Don't spend all of it on those Jordans. Oh my goodness! And the Lord ask for 10%, give him his 10% and he'll let you keep 90, okay? So let's do that. But a lot of times the parents, like my parents, they didn't know anything about saving money. They were sharecroppers. But Ann King knew, well, it was Ann Brayboy then, that it had to be a better life. And I went for it. So sometimes it's just because you didn't know. Because my sons, they're like, well, why you didn't tell me about stock? And I was like, stock? What is that? You're talking about the stock you get off a chicken when you boil it? And now, they understand. And their children have stock.
Oh, wow.
So that's generational wealth right there for them.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the first time I even knew anything about stock, I'm not going to lie to you guys, one of the white agents at a company that I was working at, he was like, Ann, you're doing so well. Do you have stock? And I was like, no, what's that? So he turned me on to stock. So 100 years ago, I started buying stock. Yeah, so I mean.
Yeah, it came like that for almost like that for me. I had a client and she was buying a house for her daughter and she was paying cash. Now it was a Fannie Mae foreclosure, but still she was paying cash because her father had started investing in stock. And gave them, his kids, some stock. It was either in Duke Energy or Bell South. And I never forgot that. Never forgot that. So I started.
I started out
not
with
immediately
Exxon,
then, but later on, I started investing in stock and trying to get the kids.
I mean, right now the market will make you want to throw up, but it'll come back.
It's a great buying market.
Yeah.
Duke
Yeah, it
Energy
is.
was like $98.11 a share.
Wow.
And they pay dividends.
Yep.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Oh, I check every day. Yeah, I saw them this morning.
Well, I don't have any stock, so I'm learning something here at the table that I need to
Well,
need to
Duke
get
Energy
into.
is an investment. You hold it. That's when you
Okay.
get in hold.
Okay. So, I was looking at this story. Well, as part of my job, I have to keep up with stories and different things that happen to African American agents. And I saw a story of an agent was going to a showing, and a neighbor called the police, and then that agent ended up being placed in and he was with his son as well, being placed in handcuffs, and it was very traumatic because, as we know, when you're Black in America, you may, if the police are called, it may end up in, your life being taken away from you. So he was very just shaken up. And even though everything was okay, they ended up verifying that he was a real estate agent, that he was on a showing. It was very traumatizing to him and his son. Do you guys ever hear about anything like that happening, or have had any experiences with going on showings and maybe the neighbors don't know you're a realtor, or having any altercations with police officers?
I have not had anything to that extreme, but I have had neighbors come out in the yard and they just stand there and watch, as we go in the showing. They don't say anything. They just come out and watch, and and I just I watch them back, and leaving I speak, but they just watch. They don't say anything. But I've had on multiple occasions, I have had neighbors come out and just watch.
Yeah, and in that situation, it was a neighbor who called the police on on that
exactly.
person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so I've not had the police. I've had the neighbors watch, and I've had someone say, well, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And I started, I was with Century 21 at the time, so I got the Century 21 license plate and put on the front of my car, so in hopes that they would see, okay, this person is a realtor, or real estate agent. Let's, they have a right to be here. But yeah, so I was speaking with someone about realtor safety, and I didn't think about it at the time, but we talk about realtor safety.
Yes.
And there is a difference between realtor safety and Black realtor safety.
Absolutely.
And we don't think about it.
good
It's
point.
like when we're putting lock boxes on and you're putting them on the back door, or you're putting them on the faucet or the gas meter of the house. For Black real estate agents, and probably men more than female, but I would just say Black real estate agents, when they see a Black person, the neighbors see a Black person walking around the house and peering and looking,
Yep.
you know, they're thinking they're trying to break in, or they're casing the place. And as real estate agents, we don't think about that.
Right, you're just
Especially-
out trying to do your job.
Yes.
Right. Especially, you know, especially white real estate agents, that's often, most of the times that's not something that they have to consider, think about, or deal with. But yeah, we have to. And I had a book of REO inventory, and I'm often going to check to see if it's occupied. And it would always concern me about going to Travelers Rest or areas that were in the mountain areas, because I had a friend that was a tax assessor, and he had been held at gunpoint several times. Of course, he was Black. Several times when it was time to do the 5-year assessment, because they didn't want him on his property. So it concerned me.
Wow.
Because even, I would say 5 years ago, you could go to show a property in a high-end area, and the homeowner would be there. And when I go to the door, I have to hand them a card to let them know that I'm really the agent. So if I'm going to break into your house, I don't think it would be in the daytime. And I got permission to come. But I mean, this was 5 years ago, and it may still happen now. And back in the early days, I would have people to call in, and I don't know, maybe some days I sound white, but they would ask to look at a property, and they would ask me, well, is any Blacks in that area? And I'm holding the phone like, I don't know, you know? I mean, it's been rough, but it's worth it though, and somebody had to do it. Yep.
Yes. What are ways that, based on your experience and the things that you've went through, what are ways that you guys, and advice that you can give to up and coming Black agents that are, you know, new into the business? What's some advice that you can give that can, you know, maybe inspire them or make their job a little easier based on some things that you guys experienced?
I would say be knowledgeable. Make sure you know your craft. Be professional. I know we live in a time where we want to dress down. You know, everybody wants to wear flip-flops and jeans. You know, want to be comfortable, but be knowledgeable, professional, and as our grandparents would say, always be courteous, because that will go a long way. And then network with other agents, because you asked earlier, one of the things I've changed. I think for the most part, the real estate industry is more accepting of minorities, whether it be Black, brown, or what have you. It is more accepting, and we're being encouraged to join and participate more.
And not just on the local level, but on the national level also. The agents need to get involved.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw a statistic last year that of the NAR committees, the chairs of those committees are like 90-something% all white. So that means we got work to do.
Yeah, we got to get in the game.
Yes, not only do we need to be on the committees, we need leadership positions on these different committees. And yeah, I definitely saw that. I was surprised by that statistic, and I hope that this year those statistics are a little better.
Yeah, because we got to have a seat at the table. Because if we don't have a seat at the table, we're on the menu. Y'all know that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So I would, and also say that for the Black agents that are getting in the business, talk to the ones that have been in the business for a while. You know, I know this is a competing industry, but let's not make the same mistakes.
Right.
Yep. Talk to the ones that have been in the business for a while.
And when you get that good check, do not spend all of it. Okay?
You said pay your tithes. I'll say pay your taxes too.
I know that's right.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Tithes and taxes.
Let's circulate that money somewhere other than retail.
Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
Do you
That's
guys
right.
ever feel that being a Black agent, you have to work twice as hard, or you
Yes.
have to?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
You
Without
agree
a
with
doubt.
that?
Yes.
Yeah, I tell my daughter, you have to be better than and different from. We can't be the same. We're not a Kennedy, Eisenhower, or Hoover. So she needed A's, she needed honor rolls, so she could get scholarships. But that applies to us too. We have to be better than and different from. Not very many of us are trust fund babies. So
That's right.
our country club legacies. So we don't have that demographic to pull from. So my grandmother couldn't say, call Bill if you want a loan.
Right.
And I know that has happened. I've had friends that were in banking, and he'd say, Denise, my manager said his friend from the country club is sending his son up here to get a loan. And in any other circumstance, we would not have made a loan to him. So yeah, we can't be the same.
Absolutely.
And are there any organizations that you guys are a part of that work on these issues? And I know personally from my experience working with Denise that she is a member of NARAB. So are you guys a part of any organizations that work on anything to do with housing?
So NARAB, the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, is an organization that was started in 1947 by 12 pioneers for Black real estate professionals, because we could not have the lockbox. We could not be members of NAR. So that organization was started to help Black real estate professionals. And now, our goal is democracy in housing. There was the Columbia chapter was very instrumental in a fair housing lawsuit. So and we're still growing. We're still striving and growing. Hopefully we'll get a chapter down in Myrtle Beach soon. But we have chapters in Greenville in the upstate, one in Columbia, and one in Charleston, as far as South Carolina is concerned. But I'm also a part of United Housing Connection, which is a nonprofit organization in Greenville that help low income and help displaced people, families. I had one that they had students that were living in a hotel. They were homeless. And they were being kicked out of the hotel. They were living in their car, and we were able to find housing for them.
That's great.
And NACA is very good with helping underprivileged as well. The NACA Association.
Yes, I had. I worked with a lady through the NAACP. I volunteered with them, and they connected me with the lady who was going through issues with her landlord. Basically, the landlord wasn't keeping the property up to date. It had a pest infestation. They wouldn't send anyone. It was leaks in the roof. It was all type of things going on with that, and they just refused to fix it. So I kind of represented her and navigated and, was kind of communicating, because she was low income. So she was very knowledgeable, very intelligent, but she felt that they weren't hearing her and they weren't really listening to her. And so we were able to get them to fix some things, but ultimately she went through the NACA program and now she is a homeowner. Awesome. So yeah, I was super excited about that. So what does having a seat at the table mean to you guys in terms of real estate? What does that look like, and what does that mean to really have a seat at the table?
What we're doing right here, right now. This is a seat at the table right here. Yes.
So getting the opportunity to share.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's being having input on the decisions that are made that affect our industry, so that it will be as challenging for those that are coming behind us, and so that we can pull them along and get them involved also, and let them know. Because oftentimes I was the first and the only one at the table, whether on the board in my local association. So having a seat at the table is, hey, maybe you need to look at this differently for this group of people, or this is what this decision will mean to this demographic, whether it
Yeah.
be females or men or Black or Asian or what have you. So that's what, to me, that's what having a seat at the table. And then when you have a seat at the table, you gotta speak up. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. You have to say it.
Yeah, so what about someone who feels that, they don't want any retaliation, or they're just trying to do their business? They want to speak up, but maybe they feel fearful that by speaking up that they'll be alienated or that it would somehow affect their business negatively. Do you guys have any advice for that or any opinions on that?
Get over it.
Mm.
Get over it.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it might, and it
might,
has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It might.
And it has for me. It
Yeah.
has.
But the end result, though, was worth it.
It was, sometimes I feel like there have been times where I felt like Moses. I'm going to lead the people to the promised land. I won't get to walk on it, but
I won't get there.
Why you think I'm still at the table 40 years, okay? 40 years. Did they roam around in the wilderness 40 years?
I think, the most important thing about having a seat at the table is that you become a part of the decision-making process.
That's right.
Because, for the longest time, we always had to accept, the rules and the things that they came up with.
Yep.
So, us being a part or having a seat at the table becomes a part of that process. So just like Denise says, hey, well, what about this? What about this? And so that, in itself changes the way that everybody else thinks.
So just standing up and saying how you feel can really make a difference on the industry. Yeah. I agree with that. So what are some things that you guys can share, Denise and Richard, about that's coming up with the Diversity Council that you guys are excited about?
I am excited about this simply because of our CEO, Nick Cremidas. So when NAR, first came and said, hey, we want to start a diversity council, Nick jumped right aboard and said, hey, this is something that we need to do. And at that time, I was the president of our association. And so when I heard about it, immediately I called, our CEO, and I was like, listen, this is something that we need to do. This is something that we need to get on board with. Because, our numbers, were growing in the PD. And I say, hey, this can only be a good thing. Mm-hmm. So, I am so excited about the things that we're doing, the things that we are doing, not, locally, but also on the state level.
Yes.
I'm excited about the book club.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, it's one, encouraging us to read.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
Because let's be real, people say if it's something you won't, if you won't put it in a book because we don't read.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited about the book club. I'm excited about the choices of books that we're reading this year, and I'm excited about the scholarship. The scholarship is for Leadership Academy, and so this will allow more minorities to enter into leadership, to learn about RPAC. They'll learn about what happens behind. They can look behind the curtain and see what happens and decide, hey, I want to be in leadership, or maybe I don't want to be in leadership, but I'm smarter in my industry now. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited that at SCR, DEI is sincere. It's not just, we're just trying to check off the core standards. Right. We are really trying to make a difference, and we want to make a change and to get more minorities involved in real estate for real.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Well,
that was just getting involved when I first got into real estate. Now this was December 2012, so really say 2013 when I actually started doing things, and I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, male or female, and so to me that was really disparaging. because of, and real estate is a great industry. It's a great profession. But, when I look around and I'm in meetings and I'm the only one that look like me in the meetings. Mm-hmm. And so, that was one of the things that really encouraged me to get involved, not only locally, but at the state level. Yes. Just so having a seat at the table, being involved.
So have you guys ever dealt with like imposter syndrome or a feeling of maybe I don't belong here? I feel like I dealt with that in law school when you go to class and you see the pictures on the wall and none of them look like you, and you see the teachers, they're not reflective of you, but then you see, maybe the cook or the janitor are the only black people in the building. It can start to make you feel like feelings of, do I belong, and kind of questioning, like, are you supposed to be here? Have y'all ever felt like that? And what advice can you give to just overcoming that feeling when you go into a meeting and you're the only black person, or maybe it's one other one, and, maybe it's me and Denise, and even though things are getting better now, what's some advice you can give to that feeling of maybe feeling like you don't belong just because it's not many other black people at that table with you or at that meeting?
Well, I can go back to maybe my first RPAC committee meeting at the state level. And I'm, new to real estate, have somewhat of an understanding about RPAC. And so I'm in this meeting with all of these great people, and I'm like, wow, do I really belong here? I mean, these people are talking about things that I really don't understand, or, I really don't, know what's happening. So, yes, I've had that feeling, but I think one of the things that you can do is to make sure you're prepared, for the meeting. Make sure you understand the information. Make sure you understand the issues that we're talking about. And so that in itself can help you, get over that feeling, because you came to the meeting, you came prepared.
Okay, that's some good advice.
And I've served on so many different boards: the McLeod Foundation Board, the Boys and Girls Club. And when you walk into that meeting, the first time you be like, holy smoke, what have I done? But like Trappier said, once you get in there and kind of see how things work out, and always have some input, because they expect for us to sit there and not have anything to say. So be prepared and let your ideas be heard, because I may start to say something and you over here, Mr. White Guy, you're going to talk above me. Well, excuse me, let me finish.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like that.
For sure, especially, when you're the first, you do feel like you don't belong. But I would say, just in addition to you guys are saying be prepared, just keep pushing forward.
Right.
And then find someone that will mentor you. Find someone that you can ask questions. And that's one of the reasons I said earlier, when you find those that have been in the business for a while, other black agents or brown agents or what have you that have been in the business for a while, and talk to them, or whatever that organization is, talk to them, ask them questions, so you don't have to, if they made it from A to D, then you can pick up from D and go as far as you can go, or you guys can join hands and go together. But yeah, there are times you feel like you don't belong. You may not say the A, the D, and the thans, the who and the whom. You may not have those things correct, but let not your heart be troubled, and just keep moving forward.
And there is really some nice white people out there that will help you. There really are some nice people out there. Yeah.
Have you guys had experience with having allies that have advocated for you, maybe when you didn't feel comfortable advocating for yourself, or, white allies that have made your job easier or did things to help you? Do you guys have experience with that?
Yeah, so one of the reasons that I'm here now is an old, I won't say old, but my original AE for GGAR, Greater Greenville Association of Realtors, was Doris Bramlett. And she said, Denise, we all want you to do well. I didn't know what that meant then. I started real estate, I was 22, and not a legacy, the first one from my family in real estate. So I wasn't sure what that meant. But yes, she was the first. And then there's been others since. There are people that have advocated for me that I didn't even know that they were advocating for me. So for sure.
Because when I opened my Century 21, I'll never forget when I went to the office the first morning, Gary was there waiting for me, one of the attorneys in Florence, and that meant so much to me that he even took time out of his schedule to come and support me like that. And over the years, he has helped me so much. And John J. Bailey, bless his heart, he get on my last nerve. But if it had not been for him, for me to go to his office when I did, I would not be sitting here, because he told me just how to do it and how it was, because he's Lebanese, so he know how the prejudice feel. So he encouraged me and he helped me so much, because when I went in there that day and I wasn't the cleaning lady and I told him what happened, he said, oh no, he said, this is not going to happen. This is not going to happen, because I see your potential. And he helped me so much. Wow. But I made him a lot of money too, so I want him to know that if he listened to this. But he was a great mentor for me.
Wow.
Really
I'm so happy you mentioned that, because there's been 2 Black Century 21 franchises in South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, right? You and Mr. Ruff, right?
I don't know Mr. Ruff, but I know whenever I signed those papers, it went all over everywhere. My brother in Lake City said he was at this little store one morning, and this white man said, did you hear about that black lady getting that Century 21? And he was like, oh my goodness, and it's in Lake City?
Yeah, and that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Century 21 was a lot of help to me too, because they opened a lot of doors for me too. They really did.
And what year did you open your franchise?
What was I?
What year did you open your Century 21 franchise?
2008, when the market fell apart. 2008, yep. And I kept it for 10 years.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yep.
And I guess I'll just end by asking you guys, what does fair and equal housing mean to you? What does it mean to have fair housing? And when we say, we're promoting and advocating for diversity, like what does that mean in the aspect of housing and on the consumer side and as a realtor? What does that mean to you guys?
So I think fair housing, for me, it means that everyone will have if they have the income and the credit, the wherewithal, that they have the opportunity to become a homeowner. And whether it's, whether they're buying a $30,000 house, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, but whether they're buying a $30,000 home or a $30 million home, and it's going to be decent and affordable housing. Same standards across the board, whether you're in the wealth division of the bank or not.
Thank you for that.
I think, to me, what fair housing basically means is everybody is judged by the same standard as to where, color is not seen. So it's basically based on numbers. If you got the credit score, you got the money, congratulations. Yep. You bought a house. So that's what it means to me.
Yep. And color is green. If you
Absolutely.
can afford
That's
it,
right.
I'm going to take you there, baby.
That's right.
Ma'am.
One of the things that I would like to see eliminated when we speak of fair housing is the pricing, the level credit pricing. Because I have a 580 score, then my interest rate or my mortgage insurance is going to be a little higher than if I have a 700 credit score. And that's where having the higher credit scores are beneficial, because your mortgage insurance may be less, or your credit score your interest rate may be a little less if your credit score is higher. But I would like, to see that eliminated. Because some people's credit score is lower because of their credit utilization.
Right.
And some people's credit utilization is high because of their income.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. And this has been another episode of the South Carolina Good Life podcast in celebration of Black History Month. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and was able to learn something and take something away from this. And as always, I'm your host, Tiara Pitts, and I hope you guys enjoyed the episode.
For past and future episodes, check out the Good Life podcast at goodlife.screaltors.org. Thanks for tuning in.